Since 2003, this is the Sports Source, East Tennessee's #1 sports talk show.
Presented by Junk Be Gone, Phoenix Conversions.
With your host, John Pennington. The Sports Source starts now.
Good Sunday morning. Welcome into the Sports Source. We got a lot to discuss today. Tennessee gets a basketball win at Vanderbilt to salvage the week. They've got Kansas coming up this week. I don't know how you salvage that one. We'll discuss. And then there's plenty of football news to discuss. The 2019 season is now fully to bed. Time to start looking toward 2020, and that's what we're going to do today. Let's get right into it. First segment of this 90-minute program is brought to you by our friends at Junk Be Gone. As I've told you for years, these folks can remove big or small items from your home, from your office. They can handle shredding for your business. They can do a lot more than that. Plus, they recycle as much paper and plastics and metal as possible. So when you get them to get rid of something, they're going to try and recycle as much of that as possible, and they donate stuff to Mission of Hope and to CARM. It's a good company, good folks. Mike Sush does a great job with this locally owned business. Junk Be Gone. I am a proud user of them. Probably going to be using them here in a month or two every spring. Junk Be Gone. Give them a shot this week. All right. I want to welcome in the first wave of panelists. We have right here former Vol basketball coach Mark Pankratz. Thanks for being here. Mike Strange and Jimmy Himes, longtime members of this show, both Hall of Fame sports writers in the state of Tennessee. And, of course, Jimmy, you can hear him Monday through Friday on Sports Talk on 99.1 The Sports Animal. Thanks, gentlemen, for being here. As always, let's just start with a few observations on yesterday's basketball game. Tennessee, only 21 points at halftime, kind of a brutal start. Under 70 points of offense for the sixth straight game. 8 of the last 9. I don't think this is a slump. I think it's just who they are, obviously. Their three-quarter court trap turned the game around yesterday. We're going to be breaking that down a little bit later in the show. When I say we, I mean Mark. UT shot 53% from the floor. That's a nice step in the right direction. Part of the reason, they only put up 8 three-point attempts. I think Rick Barnes got to them and said, all right, knock this crap off. We're going to have some numbers on that as well. Bowden, Jordan Bowden, if you're looking for positives, 7-11 from the floor, 21 points. That's 2 games in a row where he shot pretty well. It's not like he didn't look like an All-American out there, but it was certainly steps in the right direction this week for Jordan Bowden, certainly they need. And then defensively, well, part of it's Tennessee's defense, part of it's just Vanderbilt's weaponless at the moment. 0 for 25 from three-point range. It's the first time in 1,080 games they didn't hit a single three-pointer. All right, Jimmy, Mike, I'll let you guys react, your thoughts on the game, and then I'll have Mark come in and back clean up for all of us.
I thought the second half was the way Tennessee needs to play. You mentioned they're 1 of 8 on threes. They were 1 of 2 on threes in the second half. They shot 67% in the second half. I think they were 12 of 12 on free throws. That's a pretty darn efficient half that they turned in against Vanderbilt. And I realize Vanderbilt isn't very good, but I do think that Rick Barnes finally got the message to him. Be more patient on offense, quit jacking up threes, and you got a chance to be really productive. And Bowden was a big part of that too.
You know, Tennessee looked just awful against Georgia Wednesday night. Didn't look very good first half against Vanderbilt, but it ends up being a really good effort by Tennessee. Now, it's just so typical of the league this year, I think, that you'll see whether it's Missouri or Auburn, somebody looks really good on Saturday or Wednesday, and then they just look awful the next game. It's a really interesting year that teams are just flip-flopping high and low, the agony of ecstasy and the
yeah, the agony and the ecstasy.
The agony, the agony and the ecstasy.
And that's not from game to game. That can be from half to half.
Yeah.
Yeah,
in some cases.
Yeah, I mean, South Carolina looked awful a week ago Saturday here, and then look what a week they've had. Yeah. So,
from a positive standpoint, how about John Fulkerson and Pons? I mean, those are guys that, when you talk about Bowden, and there's been a lot of talk about his struggles this year, but those are 2 guys that have been playing pretty consistently, been playing pretty well, and they did it again yesterday. But the big thing for me was, look at 42 points in the paint. I think they had about 20 points in fast break, or 20 points off turnovers, 12 points on fast break, only 8 three-pointers like you mentioned. It showed that the message that Barnes was talking about of attacking the rim, getting to the paint, playing inside out, even with Pons and Fulkerson, again, talent, who they were competing against is one thing, but their post-up were much closer to the rim. They were much closer to the paint, and that freed up the lane. And then, like we'll talk about later, that 1-2-2, they did some things that they were the aggressive team. As opposed to our aggression being, hey, let's jack more threes. Our aggression was, let's get close to the basket, let's get to the free throw line, let's impose our will on this basketball team. And they did that for a good 20, 25 minutes and win handedly.
Quick thoughts on Uros Plavsic. This is a kid who had tried to get cleared, redshirted last year at Arizona State. He had been built up to the point that, we got an all-SEC guy just sitting on the bench due to the SEC. It's like, let's tamp the brakes a little bit. He's never played a college game. He got in, didn't look great against Georgia in his first action in 2 years, and of course the response is, well, he was a waste. It's that pendulum of insanity. Your thoughts, though, on Plavsic and what he could develop into, just that 7'1" frame. He looks like a 35-year-old out there.
I know. Like if he's a redshirt freshman, he's 20, 21 years old. He looks like he's 32.
Yeah.
But
as opposed to Drew Pember, who looks like he's 15.
I think you see a reason why Arizona State redshirted him. Yeah. But he's a grown man physically, and I'd certainly rather have him than not have him.
Exactly.
I think you're probably looking maybe trying to get 6 or 8 points a game out of him, maybe 3 or 4 rebounds. And he's an inside presence. He's got a little jump hook that I think as he continues to play, he'll be more productive in that regard.
Yeah.
And just the fact that he's a 7-footer, he's going to help you. And exactly how much remains to be seen, but I think he can be productive for Tennessee and be an asset to them.
He fits the mold. You watch Barnes teams of Texas. They always had the big guy that would kind of run down the court in transition that the point guard could dribble off of. He fits that mold. He can rebound. He's very left shoulder, so that right jump hook. Made a good shot late in the game. But he's a guy, one thing he does have is 5 fouls. And so if he's going to play 10 minutes, we can be more aggressive and allow our length on the ball to defend better, let Pons come up and sweep and block stuff on the weak side. He can play because he can rebound with his big frame, and he's got 5 fouls to add to that aggressiveness that without him, that lack of depth, we can't have Fulkerson, we can't have Pons getting any foul trouble because we didn't have anybody behind him.
Yeah.
All right, let me go through a couple of positives that we've already mentioned a little bit here. First up, the 3-point shots went back this year, and you could tell I had something planned for today, and then they changed their attack plan on me, and I'm adjusting on the fly. But Tennessee's worst 3-point shooting teams. This is the second worst since they added the line in 86-87 at 30.5%. But look, in terms of attempts, they're on pace for 672 threes this year. Those other two teams that didn't hit well, that was a different game in 93-94 and even in 2010-2011, but they're looking 100 more attempts. So the fact that they went out yesterday, I think Barnes knows this number. I think Barnes is aware of it, and I think he beat it in at halftime yesterday.
Well, there's also, you've put the line back further,
yes,
which made you think you might have a little bit fewer 3-point attempts. And to go the other way and shooting that poor, that's got to ruffle Barnes' feathers.
Yeah, it's one thing if you're not hitting them. If you're not hitting them, don't fire up so many.
Well, and the game has changed from before the 90s. You had more motion offense. You had more so now you've got more one-on-one play. And those one-on-one 3-point shots, that's some of why Bowden has struggled, is because the type of 3-pointers they're taking aren't the highest percentage of makeable shots.
And let's talk about Bowden very quickly. This next graphic. All right, read this clockwise. So start in the upper left. I wanted to see what he looked like with Turner and without Turner because that's kind of when the slump started. And you can see it with Turner. You're shooting 41% from the floor, 32% from 3. Since Turner's been out, even with yesterday, even with this past week, he's up to 27%, about 13% from 3. That's a huge drop-off. And you look further, he's at least better on the road than he is at home without Turner. 48% on the road without Turner. Shooting less than 10% at home without Turner. So it would suggest that, A, this is someone who's pressing a little bit. All the other pieces are gone. He might not be comfortable in that kind of role as being the guy to carry him, and he's pressing a little bit. There are other issues that kind of coincided with that.
Yeah, I think not only the loss of Turner, but also at the time he had his jersey retired at Carter, he lost his grandmother. So I think that probably has had an impact on him as well. He's very close to his grandmother.
And I've wondered about in the locker room, all those guys being gone. Not just all those guys being gone on the court, but in the locker room. If you're kind of struggling and you go in the locker room, you look around, there's a bunch of freshmen. There's not,
No shoulder to lean on in terms
not the guys you've been playing with for several years, especially with Lamonte gone.
Well, and not only with Bowden, but you look at this team, they're a team of very good role players, full of them. Fulkerson, Pons, they're a team of very good role players. They don't have the alpha guy. They don't have the go-to guy, and that's the separator from being a bubble team maybe on the outside looking in to being a really good basketball team. And I don't know if there's that guy. Maybe it's Josiah, but maybe who is that guy that's going to take that next step?
Especially as the schedule is about to turn ugly. We're going to debate that next. I've pretty much written this team off as NIT at best. I think most people have. Are we writing this team off too soon? And also, there's been a lot of talk this week and this year about big programs don't have these kind of step backwards. Yes, they do. We'll discuss next. Come on back.